Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. The night started out as something completely ordinary, but sometimes the moments we least expect are the ones that change everything. I never thought I'd find myself caught between guilt, longing, and choices I couldn't take back. It's not the kind of story people openly admit, but it's one of those secrets that weigh heavy on the heart, the kind you only share in whispers, wondering if anyone else could ever understand. This is a story about temptation, timing, and a decision that left me questioning everything I thought I knew about love and boundaries. I was just like anyone else, living what seemed like a normal life, but deep down there was a loneliness I didn't talk about. The kind that creeps into the quiet hours of the night when no one's watching. That's when emotions become louder, and that's when dangerous lines start to blur. It was during one of those quiet nights that something happened, something I never expected, and something I can't forget. He wasn't supposed to be there, and neither was I. One moment, it was just the sound of my own heartbeat, and the next, I was swept up in a connection that felt wrong and right all at once. You ever find yourself drawn into something you know you should walk away from, but your body and heart won't let you? That's where I was. It wasn't planned, and it wasn't rehearsed. It was real, raw, and messy in a way that shook me to my core. The man I was with that night was someone I thought I understood. He was steady, confident, and in his eyes I found something I hadn't felt in years, desire mixed with tenderness. Every word he said, every touch, seemed to peel back the layers of loneliness I'd been carrying. But the truth is, no matter how much passion filled the room, the situation was fragile, almost like a secret about to be exposed. And sometimes secrets don't stay hidden for long. Because just as everything felt like it was reaching a point of no return, that's when I heard it, the sound of the front door opening, footsteps too familiar to mistake. My heart sank, my breath caught in my throat, and I realized the moment I had feared most was here. He wasn't supposed to be back yet. He was early. Too early. In that instant, the world seemed to stop. I couldn't move, couldn't think. Every choice, every emotion that had led me to this moment crashed down on me. What would happen if the truth came out? Could I explain? Could I even forgive myself? The silence between the footsteps and the moment they reached the door felt endless, like the longest seconds of my life. The sound of the door closing echoed through the house, and I froze in place. My mind was spinning, trying to piece together what to do, how to move, how to breathe without giving everything away. Those footsteps that had once been a sign of comfort now felt like the ticking of a clock, counting down to the moment when everything might collapse. I glanced at the man beside me, and even though no words were spoken, the look in his eyes said it all: fear, desire, regret, and something else that I couldn't quite define. To understand how I ended up here, you'd need to know the truth about my life before that night. I had always played the role of the dependable one, the one who took care of everyone else while keeping my own feelings tucked away in the background. On the outside, everything looked fine. A stable home, familiar routines, and people who trusted me. But behind that calm exterior was a longing I didn't admit, a craving for connection that had been missing for far too long. He came into my life unexpectedly, someone I had always seen as part of my world, but never in the way that night revealed. He was older than his age suggested, with a maturity that surprised me, and he carried himself with a confidence that was hard to ignore. He noticed things about me that others had stopped seeing: the way I lingered when I was lost in thought, the sadness I tried to hide with a smile, the way I looked away when conversations got too personal. And slowly, without either of us realizing, something began to build between us. It started with small things, innocent conversations that ran longer than they should, moments of laughter that lingered a bit too much, and glances that felt like they held secrets neither of us were ready to say out loud. I told myself it was harmless, that I just needed the attention, that nothing would come of it. But deep down, I knew that the line was already fading, and the pull between us was becoming impossible to ignore. That night wasn't the first time I felt the spark. There had been 100 little moments leading up to it, the times he stayed up late just to talk, the times his words softened the loneliness I thought no one noticed, the way his presence filled a space that had felt empty for too long. Every detail added up to something bigger, something that left me both excited and terrified. But the timing was never supposed to collide like this. He wasn't supposed to come back early. The house wasn't supposed to be filled with this tension, this risk of discovery. As the footsteps grew closer, I felt the weight of every decision pressing down on me. The air felt thick, and I couldn't shake the thought. What happens when the secret you've been holding so tightly threatens to slip into the open? In that frozen moment, I found myself asking questions I didn't have the answers to. Was what I felt real, or was it just the illusion of something I had been missing? Did he feel the same way, or was I just another passing desire? And more than anything, if the truth came out, would it ruin us all forever? The door handle turned, and my heart stopped. This was it, the point where everything could shatter. But before I tell you what happened next, I want to ask you, have you ever been caught in a situation where your heart wanted one thing, but your conscience begged for another? What choice would you make if you were standing in my place? The handle of the door clicked, and in that single sound my entire body went rigid. I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my chest, each second stretching into an eternity. The man beside me looked as tense as I felt, his jaw clenched, his eyes darting toward the door as though bracing for impact. We didn't move, not a single word passed between us. The silence was louder than anything I'd ever experienced, filled with all the emotions we couldn't dare say aloud. Then came his voice, calm, casual, almost unaware of the storm brewing behind that door. "I'm back earlier than I thought," he called out, his footsteps echoing through the hallway. That simple announcement pierced through me. Every part of me wanted to stay frozen in denial, but reality had a way of reminding me that we weren't living in a secret bubble. The world outside this room still existed, and it was knocking on the door right now. To explain the weight of that moment, I need to take you back further. The conflict wasn't only about passion or desire. It was about what was missing in my life, and how easy it is to fall when someone finally notices the parts of you that have been invisible for years. I had been living in a routine, days that bled into each other, conversations that felt like echoes of old patterns, and a home that sometimes felt less like comfort and more like a quiet prison. When he started paying attention to me, when he made me feel like my thoughts and my feelings mattered, it was like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. But that sunlight came with shadows. The more time we spent together, the more I realized how dangerous this connection was. A lingering touch that lasted a second too long, the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't noticing, it all built into something we couldn't ignore. And yet, there was a constant war inside me. One part of me screamed that this was wrong, that boundaries were there for a reason. The other part, the lonelier part, begged me not to let go of the one thing that finally made me feel alive again. That war only grew louder as the days went by. Even the simplest moments, like sitting across the table at dinner or brushing past him in the hallway, felt charged with an energy that neither of us could admit, but both of us felt. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, complicated, and tangled in ways that made every decision dangerous. And now, with him walking through the front door earlier than expected, the walls of that secret were about to crumble. I could almost hear the questions that might come, the suspicions that might rise. My pulse quickened with every step closer. The man beside me finally whispered, "We have to stay calm." But how could calm exist in a storm like this? As the footsteps drew nearer, I wondered if this was fate's way of exposing us. Was this the moment everything would come crashing down? Or would luck give us one more chance to hide behind the thin veil of secrecy? The footsteps grew louder, each one pounding against my nerves like a drum. I could almost measure the distance, down the hallway, closer and closer, until it felt like the door between us was the only thing left holding back the truth. My breath caught in my throat as I tried to steady myself, but the air felt heavy, charged with all the unspoken emotions that had brought us here. He looked at me, eyes wide, silently asking if I was ready for what was coming. But how could anyone be ready for this? The handle turned again, slower this time, as if he was pausing on the other side, listening. That pause was more terrifying than the sound of the door itself. It was as though he already sensed something wasn't right, as if instinct had warned him before he even walked in. My heart raced, and in that silence I could hear everything: the faint hum of the fridge, the creak of the floorboards, even the uneven rhythm of my own breathing. Inside my mind, questions spiraled faster than I could keep up with. Would he notice the tension in the air? Would my face give me away? Could I look him in the eye without him seeing the storm of guilt and desire swirling inside me? And what about the man beside me? Would his calm hold, or would the pressure break us both? Every second felt stretched, like the universe was forcing me to relive every choice that had led to this moment. The secret glances, the whispered conversations, the way we lingered too long in each other's presence, it all built up to this fragile line we were standing on. If that door opened, there would be no going back. I felt his hand brush lightly against mine, a touch so subtle it could have been accidental, but it wasn't. It was reassurance, or maybe desperation, reminding me we were in this together whether I liked it or not. My chest tightened, not from the closeness, but from the reality that everything could end in the next breath. The doorknob rattled, and my stomach dropped. This was it, the moment of exposure, the point where secrets either stayed hidden or exploded into the open. My pulse thundered in my ears as I tried to brace myself for what was about to happen. And that's where I have to stop for now. What do you think will happen when that door finally opens? Will the truth spill out in an instant, or will another twist keep the secret buried a little longer? Comment your thoughts below. I want to know what you'd expect in this moment, because the climax is about to change everything. The doorknob rattled once more, but then, just as suddenly, the sound stopped. I held my breath, waiting for the door to swing open, waiting for everything to come crashing down. But instead, I heard his voice again, calm, steady, and almost too casual. "I need to grab something from my room before I head back out," he said, his footsteps echoing down the hall in the opposite direction. Relief rushed through me, but it was tangled with something even more dangerous, the realization that this wasn't over. We had been given a few more borrowed moments, but the risk had doubled. If he had come that close once, it could happen again. The man beside me finally exhaled, his hand running through his hair as if to push the tension out of his body. "That was too close," he whispered. His words weren't just about fear, they carried weight, a warning, as though even he knew the walls of our secret were starting to crack. I could see the same question burning in his eyes that haunted me. How much longer could this continue before everything exploded? And that's when the second twist revealed itself. Just as I thought the danger had passed, I heard the unmistakable sound of a phone buzzing on the counter. At first, I thought it was mine, but then I realized it wasn't. He looked at me, his expression shifting, his jaw tightening as he reached for it. One glance at the screen and I saw it too, a name flashing across the display, one that made my stomach drop. It wasn't just a random call. It was from someone who should never suspect, someone whose trust would be shattered if the truth ever slipped out. He silenced the phone quickly, but I could see the panic in his face. "We can't keep hiding like this," he muttered, his voice low and urgent. It wasn't the kind of statement meant to end things, it was the kind that meant we were in deeper than either of us wanted to admit. And suddenly, it wasn't only about being caught in a physical sense. The emotional stakes were higher. The truth was, we weren't just risking discovery, we were risking hearts, lives, and the fragile balance of everything around us. The sound of footsteps returned, closer this time, paired with the casual rhythm of him talking to himself, maybe on the phone, maybe just filling the silence. Every word sent chills down my spine, because now the stakes weren't just about the possibility of being caught in the moment. The stakes were about the web of lies tightening around us, a web that would snap sooner or later. I couldn't stop the spiral of thoughts. What if he noticed the missed call? What if he asked questions we weren't ready to answer? What if, in some cruel twist of fate, the truth came out not because of what he saw, but because of what someone else already suspected? The man beside me squeezed my hand this time, firmer, more certain, as though making a silent promise that he wouldn't let me face this alone. But even his touch couldn't calm the dread twisting in my chest. This wasn't just about stolen moments anymore. This was about what would happen when the outside world started to connect the dots we thought were invisible. And that's where I want to leave you hanging for now. Do you think secrets always find their way into the light, or can they stay hidden forever if no one dares to look too closely? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this story is only getting more tangled, and the hardest choices are still ahead. The footsteps stopped right outside the door, and this time there was no hesitation. The handle turned slowly, the creak of the hinges cutting through the silence like a blade. My chest tightened as the door swung open, and there he was standing in the doorway, his eyes narrowing as he took in the scene. It wasn't what he saw that gave us away, it was the silence, the tension, the way neither of us could mask the panic in our faces. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air was thick, and my heart was pounding so loud I thought it would echo through the room. Then his voice broke through, steady but sharp. "What's going on here?" It wasn't just curiosity, it was suspicion. He wasn't blind, he could feel the energy between us. The man beside me opened his mouth to answer, but nothing came out. I could see the struggle in his eyes, the battle between protecting me and telling the truth. I finally stepped forward, my voice shaking. "It's not what you think." But even as the words left my lips, I knew they were weak, a flimsy shield against the storm that was already breaking. He stared at me, his jaw tightening, and for the first time I realized just how much he already knew. The pieces had been adding up for him, even before tonight. The late-night conversations, the way our eyes lingered too long, all the little things we thought were hidden hadn't been hidden at all. The silence that followed was unbearable. I braced myself for anger, for betrayal, for the kind of explosion that would tear everything apart. But instead, he surprised me. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just shook his head slowly, his voice low and steady. "I trusted you both," he said. And in those words was a weight heavier than any shouting could have carried. The man beside me finally spoke, his voice breaking. It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. The honesty in his tone made my chest ache. The truth was out now, hanging in the air between us, and there was no taking it back. Then came the twist I never saw coming. Instead of walking away, instead of turning his back on both of us, he looked directly at me and said, "If this is what you want, then say it. Don't hide. Don't pretend." His challenge shook me. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just about being caught, it was about choosing. And the choice was mine to make. That night ended not with screams or slammed doors, but with a silence more powerful than either. A silence that carried the weight of betrayal, longing, and a future none of us could predict. The silence that followed his words was like nothing I had ever felt before. It wasn't loud, it wasn't violent, it was heavy. The kind of silence that forces you to face yourself. I looked at him, standing there in the doorway, waiting for me to say something. Waiting for me to make a choice that would change everything. My heart was torn in two. On one side was the comfort of loyalty, the stability of what I had always known. On the other was the fire of desire, the connection that had made me feel alive again after years of loneliness. I didn't answer right away. How could I? There was no easy way out, no perfect path that would leave everyone whole. The man beside me remained quiet, his hand brushing against mine like a silent plea. He wanted me to speak, to stand with him. But I knew that whatever I said next would draw a line that couldn't be erased. Finally, I whispered, "I never wanted to hurt anyone." It wasn't a choice, not yet, but it was the truth. He nodded once, almost as if he understood more than I expected. Without another word, he turned and walked out, leaving us both standing there in the shadow of our decisions. The days that followed weren't easy. Conversations turned into confrontations, and the weight of secrets became heavier than ever. We tried to pretend life was normal, but the cracks were there, too deep, too obvious. And slowly, I realized that secrets have a way of living longer than we expect, eating away at trust until there's nothing left. In the end, it wasn't anger that defined what came next. It was distance. Choices were made quietly, without fireworks, and our lives drifted into new directions. The passion that had once burned so brightly faded under the light of reality, leaving behind lessons that were impossible to forget. Looking back now, I see that this wasn't just a story about romance or temptation. It was a story about choices, about the fine line between love and betrayal, about how one moment can change everything. Sometimes what feels like fate is only a reminder of what we've been missing, and sometimes the hardest love story is the one where we let go. And now I want to turn this to you. Do you think we ever truly recover from choices like these? Can love survive betrayal, or is it always changed forever? Comment your thoughts below, and let me know if you'd like me to create a sequel exploring what happened after these decisions. Summary. This story follows the emotional journey of love, temptation, and secrets that spiral into one unforgettable climax. It explores the delicate balance between desire and loyalty, the pain of betrayal, and the haunting silence of choices that cannot be undone. A suspenseful romance filled with twists, this tale shows how one moment of passion can change everything. 3.